Well, hello. Welcome once again to Pale Blooms and Beyond. Thank you for joining us today. And if you do like this kind of programming, do hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. A lot of musicians that I talk to on here were unheralded back in the day. For some reason or another, didn't receive their due. And it's never too late. A little bit here I'm trying to rectify in some ways, atone for that, give some of these musicians and artists their due. A lot of these bands have seen a resurgence in interest lately. So if you do like the channel, please be sure and subscribe. Keith Hubbard is an English guitarist, vocalist, recording engineer, producer, and director of live-themed entertainment shows. Keith began his career as a founding member of the Nightriders, which the following year morphed into Ian and the Rebels, and finally the Rebels after Ian Gregson left. The band would continue until 1967. In the early 70s, Keith would become a touring member of the rock musical Hair. Mr. Hubbard, along with ex-Rebels rhythm guitarist Roy Smith, would then form Caliban in mid-1971 and would play together until 1975. A brief stint in Chicory Tip and a reformed Caliban followed until Keith returned to his roots and music from the 50s and 60s. And that would be the idea behind Shooter, the brainchild of Keith. And Shooter has morphed recently into the JKH Band. In recent years, my guest has founded JKH Music Productions in 1988 and includes the JKH Band, the Rebels, Acousticats, and Gig4life. Many of these live performances raise money for cancer research. Well, welcome, Keith. Thank you for joining me today.
Hello.
Well, take us back. Where were you born?
I was born in Southport here. To the age of 4, lived here to the age of 4. Then I moved to Ormskirk, which is a little market town about 12 miles outside the centre of Liverpool. And I was brought up there before moving back to the Southport in the mid-70s.
Okay. Early on, you remember hearing music in the household?
Oh, yeah. My dad was a piano player. Played all the local pubs. He could play anything from kind of Underneath the Arches to Rhapsody in Blue, depending what mood he was in. And yeah, he was very much in he worked in the Garrick Theatre here in Southport for quite a while as assistant stage manager, and also went on the road with a couple of acts. But this was after the war. He was in the war. He was a naval man. He was on a 14-man gunships that used to go up the North Sea after the U-boats coming out of the harbour, the German harbours in Hamburg. He got sunk, saved his captain's life, but was then a prisoner of war for the rest of the duration. He got mentioned in dispatches, got the Oak Leaf for his bravery. Then he came out and he worked at the Garrick Theatre in Southport. So he had that, and he had his musical background, and I always had this bent about being some sort of entertainer, but not necessarily early on. A musician. I always liked to sing, yeah. Although I don't think I've got such a great voice, but there you go. The guitar thing morphed more into as I became an early teenager, and yeah. I started to make my own kind of first cereal box guitars, I would call. I made a cereal box and a slat of wood and put them two together with a few little tacks in and elastic bands, and pretend in front of the mirror. And I was copying the likes of our local heroes over here. Then were like Tommy Steele and Lonnie Donegan.
Yeah.
We were a family. I was the eldest of 7. My dad actually, after his stint in the Garrick and thing, went into being a jobber on the building sites. While he was in the prisoner of war camps, he was on a building team. So he'd learned to build, but he hadn't got the indentures, or what you like to call it, or apprenticeship, to be recognised as a tradesman. So he got jobs as laying footings and footpaths and stuff like this on building sites. So we weren't very well off. We had a little radio, no television. In fact, when I bought my first record in 1960, we had no record player, but the record I heard, which was Apache by the Shadows, I just had to go and buy, and I went with my paper money for my paper round, and I bought that. It was my first single. I've still got that. That was the first single I bought, but we hadn't got a record player to play it on. So,
yeah, yeah, I've heard that, how influential, especially like Marvin Welch, the guitar work. Yeah, you know, we had our Ventures, and you had the Shadows over there. Yeah.
Well, the Ventures, I mean, the first numbers we started to learn when we did form the band, but What Don't Run by the Ventures was one of those numbers. But it was basically here, you get in the little magazines you bought, and that you get pictures of Eddie Cochran, Little Richard, Buddy Holly, all these people, and Elvis, obviously. But the first thing that actually saw that was actually rock and roll was a film called The Girl Can't Help It, with Eddie Cochran,
Eddie Cochran,
Fats Domino, Little Richard, quite a few in that, and that was the first rock and roll film, and that's when I really started to think, you know, the guitar thing really started to kick in then. And the first guitar I got was on my 15th birthday. My dad bought this second-hand guitar, which was a round top with cello holes, which he'd had painted up by one of the decorators off the building site he worked, and it was very Elvis looking. So that was where I started in 1962, learning to play the guitar, and then in '63. While I was in the last year at school, we used to have a little youth club in the lunch times for the students who were in the last year, and I took my Apache record in and the guitar in. That's the first time I actually played that Apache record on the little record player they had there, the little dancing record player. That's the first time I actually played that record. But I'd learned to play a few little odds and ends in picking out tunes on this guitar. And a schoolmate of mine, who we started school together, went through school all the way through school together, Miss Kenny, watching all this, he said, well, have you thought of starting a group? I mean, I wasn't in any sort of shape or anything playing-wise where I could be in a group. But it kind of, it ticked a box. And I said, well, yeah, I'd like to join on eventually. He said, well, let's form a group. I said, why? How do you mean let's form a group? He said, well, I've done a little bit of drumming in the Boys Brigade stuff. And I thought, drumming in Boys Brigade, that's going around the street, just reading this now.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I've seen a kit of drums in my mum's catalogue. We said, like we have Vernon's and Littlewood's catalogues then, with all sorts of stuff in. And he said, I'll get them out of the catalogue. I can pay him on a weekly basis. So he got this Gigster set of blue sparkle drums. They had pigskin skins on them, not the type of skin. And so we started messing around, playing together. The little youth club we used to go to at night time at the Ormskirk St. Anne's CYMS, Catholic Young Men's Society. They had a little youth club. We used to go there, and they let us rehearse there in an afternoon. So we were just messing around together. And another member of the club, Roy Smith, he came in to see us, and he said, I've heard you, I play a little bit of guitar, and I'd like to join. Do you think I could join up with you? I said, well, what do you play? And he had an actual electric Hofner Colorama guitar, but no amplifier. Oh. So and he could play chords. I didn't play chords then. I was just playing. I'd learn the notes, how to play the notes, and just about tune the guitar in correctly. So he would play the chords, and I would pick out the tunes. So we were copying Shadows things and bits of odds and ends like that. So that's how the Nightriders it basically started. That was those three, and then again, in the same place, we were talking one night with everybody, and they were saying about, well, are you going to play us a gig? We said, well, we really need a bass player before we can start doing that. And another member of the group there, as I said, Derek Bruff, well, I'll play bass. I said, right, can you play? I said, no, but you can show me. So, I thought, all right, okay. So he started where he was just playing, like where we were playing the chord, he'd be banging away on the one note of the bass root of the chord, and that's how we started. And we got a little set of Shadows instrumentals off, and a couple of little things Cliff Richards sang. We played in between the bingo sessions at the CRYMS Club of a night time, and they passed the hat round, and we make a few little bob, and it started like that. Then we started getting little bits of bookings at the local youth clubs. There's a couple of local youth clubs in the town, the Rec Club and the Ormskirk Young People's Club, which was known eventually as the YPC. Mm-hmm. And then one night in the YPC, we were doing a thing, and the guy who run the club said, "You need a manager. Can I be him?" So that started the Rebels off, and as that happened, Ian joined us as a singer.
Okay, let me ask you about changing the name to the Rebels. Was that because there was the Mike Sheridan and the Nightriders? There was another band.
There was another band that came to the YPC one night called the Nightriders. So we thought, well, we've got to change our name.
Yeah. Right.
So it was then and we thought we thought we were a bit rebellious in ways. So that name came in, and that's what it came. And then Ian Gregson joined us and became Ian and the Rebels. And that's how we started to go out on the road proper, just out of breaking out of just doing the little spots in between the other bands at the youth clubs and that, you know.
Yeah. Well, who was that manager? Who was the manager?
The manager was a guy named John Cropper. Okay. He was the son of the local chemist, and he was an accountant. Worked for a bakery as an accountant, and he run the youth club. He was a great manager getting us work when we really got going. Especially, he got us our first cabin gigs. Okay. That was at the end of '63. We firstly did a composition there. For the Norrie Paramore was a band leader, and he played London Palladium and played places like that. And he put this the Northwest Bands competition, Norrie Paramore Bands competition. So we entered it. John Cropper entered into this competition. Well, the Liverpool heat, part of the region, was at the Cavern. So that was our first appearance in the Cavern, and we won the heat. And then we went to the regional final, which was in Morecambe, and we won that, much to the chagrin of all the other bands. And I think what had happened as we started to run along, the Beatles had broke. The end of '62. They were coming into the fall, and the Shadows thing was starting to be not so cool. So we were then going into we were covering more of the Beatles and Mersey Beat style and type of songs that Mersey Beat bands were covered in. We were doing that type of thing. Whereas these bands that were on the other bands were all Shadows, gold army suits, and very, very professional. But we were different to them. Not any chance anywhere near as professional. But for some reason or other, people took to that, and they obviously thought there was probably more of a future ahead of that, and they voted us as the winners, and we got £100 and a recording studio session for a day, and that's how it basically all started.
It all started like that. Speaking of playing live, what happened at the show with the Brothers Grimm in '64?
Oh, that was not long after this. After Ian had joined us, we were booked to play at the Pally Ballroom in Bury, which Bury is on the outskirts of Manchester. And we were a Merseyside band, and the Mersey Beat was the big thing then. It had overtaken everything. And we went off for this booking at this Buddy Pally. And as we got there, this ballroom, nice one, white fronted with marble kind of effective front and everything, but a massive big red sign right across the banner across the front. From Merseyside, Mercy beats best, Ian and the Rebels, and then in little writing underneath, plus the Brothers Grimm. So we looked at this and we thought, So we went into the ballroom, and the manager came over he was getting our gear in. He came over, he said, right, it was a 2-tier stage, very nice stage, proper, first time we played on a proper big stage. And he said, what we want you to do, if you will set your equipment up with your drums on the second higher level, when the Brothers Grimm turn up, they can set their equipment up on the front level. They will do the opening spot. Then when they finish, they can move their equipment off and you've got the full stage. We thought, okay. So we had two what we call Stanley amps at the time, which we bought from Frank Hess's in Stanley Street, where all the Liverpool groups bought most of the gear from. And they were made especially for them. They were 15 watts. That was your fully powered things. It was quite a big ballroom, this. And we had a Selma Futurama bass amp, which was a smallish thing it had a separate top amp, but it wasn't. It was a thing about 50 watts. That's what we had, and we used to put the guitar amplifiers had 2 inputs, so the microphones went into them as well. So we had no such thing as a PA system or anything. That was it. Brothers Grimm turn up, and they've got the full lineup of Vox AC30 amps, TV60 bass amp, and a PA. We'd never seen a PA before.
Yeah.
And it was 4 columns, Vox columns, 2 on each side. We looked at this, and there's a set of Ludwig drums, but Chris had then generated to a set of Beverly. He had a Beverly, which was like a cheaper end of Premier drums. So we thought, well, looked at all this. Anyway, they goes on, and they were an absolutely fabulous rhythm and blues band. Everything was so tight, so good. Everything you'd want to be in a band. Yeah. And they went down a storm. Absolutely went down a storm. So we were watching all this and we're thinking, God, we've got to go on now.
How do we follow that?
What we're going to do. So we all reckoned our best numbers was the cover of the Beatles' I Saw Her Standing There. Yeah. So Chris drummer said, well, start with I Saw Her Standing There. Just go for it. That's all we can do. Just go for it. So this is what we decided to do. Now, Chris used to have his drums, but he's quite heavy, and his drums would move if he hit them. So what he used to do, he used to tie there's 2 stanchions that kept his bass drum up with a piece of rope round his stool stanchion. Oh, okay. So that would stop the bass drum moving forward. So he'd done that. So we sat down and we got the big announcement and everything. And we looked okay. We dressed as a kind of a Beatley style and this, that, and the other. And the big announcements and everything. And then he had 1, 2, 3, 4. And we bounced into it. And we got about 20 seconds into this number. And the rope that tied snapped. And the kit fell off the higher level, down, rolling down, everything. People just burst into laugh. And we ended up playing to about 2 people.
Oh, did you?
That was our initiation to going out of Liverpool. That was our first booking out of Liverpool, first booking on a proper big stage. I mean, the Caliban was you were in these little tight clubs. There was quite a few of them. We never played any proper big places. The next big place we played was the Oral Park Ballroom, and we made sure before we played there that we were right. And but those gigs that we got, there was a guy, those clubs were run by a guy by the name of Ralph Webster, and he had the Click Click Club in Southport and the Oral Park Ballroom, which was in the Aintree area of Liverpool, and that was a proper ballroom with a proper big stage. But these gigs, he'd have 3 bands on a night, and you didn't know who was going to be on. So similar to the Berry debacle, we were booked for the first time by an agent called Dave Forshaw, who I'm good friends with now and been friends with for years. He booked us into the Click Click Club in Southport for Welsh Webster. He said, right, you booked for the second set. Now, this club had at the back 2 fire escapes. And the way they worked it is, the band that were on first to be up and set up, you turned up, you went up this one fire escape as they took their gear off and came the other fire escape out. So we turned up at the time we were told to turn up. I can't remember exactly what it was, but we turned up and the other band was on stage and you could hear them playing. And we thought, God, listen to that. Who the heck's that? So we started getting our gear, because you could go up the fire escape into a little dressing room, get your gear into there, you lift it on stage as they were taking it off the other end. So we started to do that, and we get up there, and it was the Undertakers.
Oh, okay.
Full original lineup of the Undertakers. And we just dropped. We just thought, what are we going to do now? Look at this. So anyway, they went down. They were going on. You used to do 3 gigs in one night at that time. We found you do there, they move on to the Oral Park Ballroom if they were on first, and maybe do the Cavern or the Iron Door after that.
Yeah.
So we were just booked for the night on this one. We were just doing the one, and I think it was so Dave Forshaw could see how we actually performed. So and get the report back from Ralph Webster. So we went and we set up and we set our gear, same type of gear thing, but they had an actual built-in PA system in the club with Reslow mic. So we went on and we did our thing, and we went down okay, actually. We thought, oh, right, we went down okay. So we did our bit, got our gear off, and that was that for the night. And then Jay Posher came on. He said, right, I've got you're on the Cavern on such and such a date. I've got this, and he come over with a load of bookings. So we'd gone all right that night after following the Undertakers. So we were baptisms of fire. But the next time we went back to the Click Click, we noticed, we went into the dressing room, and the dressing room was just a kind of frame with plasterboard, and inside the frame, it had polystyrene sheets, obviously try and dampen the noise, I would think.
Yeah.
And the bands used to write their names and stuff into into this polystyrene sheets. And we looked where we put our name in. We looked where we wrote it, Ian and the Rebels, and somebody put a P in front of Ian and a TE in front of the Rebels, Pain and the Terribles. But there you go. That's the start of your career in music, and you don't think it's just something you're doing basically to start off with as a laugh.
Yeah.
But that was the start of it.
You don't think it's gonna go into a whole career and
no,
be that successful.
You have little bits of inclinations. I'd like to.
Yeah.
You'd like to be the Beatles, you'd like to be Jerry, you'd like to be even, going back even the Shadows and that. But for realistically, it's a fun thing and have a laugh and get on with it, and do it. That's what it was. Yeah.
Well, what lineup changes happened at the end of 1965?
Well, it was 63 into 64. Ian left in the summer of 64.
Right.
He'd met a girl, and he also worked for a paint company as a rep, and he was traveling a bit around the country, and he felt that he couldn't do the two things, so he left. So we were down to the 4, and Roy took over as lead singer. We were doing basically rhythm and blues. We'd gone a bit away from the Beatles thing. We were doing more like the Rolling Stones. In fact, we virtually covered the Rolling Stones' first LP, plus a couple of Animals numbers off their Animal Tracks LP. That's like House of Rising Sun and stuff like that, Roberta and things. But so we worked a little bit for about 6 weeks, I would think, doing that, and it was going okay. Then Dave Forshaw came on, Ricky Gleason, who'd been with Ricky Gleason and Top Spots, and they'd been in the Hamburg Club, and they'd been over there. They supported the Beatles on some of the things. He was 4 years older than us, but he was a good singer with a big reputation. In fact, Bob Wooler from the Cavern reckoned he was going to be the next big thing after Billy J. Kramer.
Okay.
But he had a big fallout with the Top Spots, and he was looking for a new band. So Dave Forsher said, "Do you fancy being Ricky's? Joining up with Ricky?" And our first thing was, we're not joining up with that old beggar. He's older than us. We're still 16, 17,
Right.
But then John Cropper, he said, "No, well, look, he's a name. He's a name on the circuit." Yeah. So we thought, okay. Anyways, it was a good thing, one of the best things we did, because he was a great lad, Ricky. We got on really, really well with him. He looked after us, and he was a good front man, very good front man. And we were allowed to be the rebels in our own right as well. So we'd opened up, and then he'd come on, and we did thing, and it got really, really good. In fact, we got offered to go to the Star Club very, very quickly. Yeah. But Chris and myself, the other Roy and Derek were a couple of years older than us. Chris and myself still only just coming on to 17. We couldn't get work permits to go to Germany. So the bookers said, "Well, can you not get a couple of deps in?" So the band goes over, and they could, once he gets, if you do it later after when they turn 18, we get the work permits for. But Ricky and the rest of the band, they wouldn't have that. They said, "No, unless the band goes, or we don't bother." So that was that. So unfortunately, the offer never came again to go. But yeah, Ricky was with us right through to end of '66, and then he found out that the money we were being paid, we've got all professional equipment then. We had the AC-30s and everything. John Copper had signed for these at Hesse's, and we had a full Premier kit and all this stuff, and we were paying it off through the gig money all the time. But he thought, well, we've been earning some good money here. This stuff should be paid off by now, and the lads aren't getting the money properly. So he didn't tell us, but he just tackled John Cropper. And there was a big fallout with him and John Cropper. And Derek knew we had a good relationship with John. He didn't want to spoil that over this. So he left the band. And we got a new singer in called Alan Grundy, who was out of the band called the Mersey Monsters. And he'd been in a band before the Mersey Monsters called JJ and the Highlights. And he was a good singer. Very similar to Ricky in a way, about the same age. And he joined us, but he was mad as a hatter, absolutely crazy. Some of the things we got us into. We were in a motorway cafe, the Knutsford Motorway Cafe on the M6 here in England. Yeah. And we went into the services one night, and the battle we had with he was flicking stuff at these lorry drivers and all sorts. And we at the end of it, we came out of the cafe and we were going to the van, been to the loo, then we went to the van and we couldn't find Alan. Oh, where's Alan? So we went round looking for him. We thought, oh, it just must be still in the loo or something. We went round and we turned into the, these rubbish bins that have the swinging top.
Yes. Yeah.
We came round the corner and there was one of these bins with two legs in the air. These lorry drivers had got him and stuck him head first.
Oh, wow.
Into this stuff. So that was the type of thing that ended up with that. Then again, Derek had left, and we got a new bass player, Caliban Harrison.
I was going to say, I bet he stopped flicking things at lorry drivers after that.
So, he got his come up.
He learned his lesson.
He actually lives in Australia. Emigrated to Australia. That's why he left the band. He emigrated to Australia, and still in touch. And he's still as mad as that. Still daft. And, I mean, he's in his 80s now, but he's still daft. But we got a bass player. Derek left, and we got a bass player in Cal Harrison, who'd been in the top spots. Very good bass player. But that little period was very disruptive because Alan decided he was going to Australia, got married and was going to Australia. And Kel decided he was going to emigrate to Canada. So then we had to find either a new lead singer or Roy take over again and a bass player, which we did. We found a bass player down at Berkeley. He was very good. Roy took over the singing, and we came just an out-and-out rhythm and blues group band, similar to Brothers Grimm, funny enough. Yeah. And we did all right with that for quite a few years, up to 68 or so. And then Chris got ill. he got this illness that was sweating inwardly, poisoning his system, and he went down. Chris was a big lad. He was about 14 stone. He went down to about 7 stones, spent 10 weeks in hospital, and they said that you couldn't live the group life at all. You've got to live a 9-to-5 life. So he packed in, and we tried a couple of other drummers. Roy David from St. Louis Czechs, a grand band called St. Louis Czechs, came and joined us, but it didn't work out. The camaraderie thing had gone. Do you know what I mean on that?
Yeah.
So
right.
It's up.
Right. I was going to say
that was kind of the end of the Rebels chapter in that way. There, that was the end of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you just answered my question about the breakup. So yeah. Tell me about how you heard about the auditions for the touring cast of the musical Hair. Yeah.
What had happened there is when we broke up the Rebels, when it finally broke up in the summer of '69. We had a few mates that had been in another band in Ormskirk called the Blue Chips, and one of them, Jimmy Fox, the guitarist, his brother-in-law was the manager of a sugar plantation on Antigua.
Okay.
And he invited Jimmy to go over there, just flight paid, and 3 weeks, live the life of jolly over there. So Jimmy asked about bringing a few mates over. Now, I mean, I was still in an apprenticeship. I wasn't a full-time musician. I was in an apprenticeship as an engineer and fitter, and I was not on a very high wage. I wasn't that well off. Roy had come out of his apprenticeship as a painter decorator, and he was getting reasonably good money. And Chris was a butcher. He'd gone into butchery, and he was in a good wage, but I wasn't. I couldn't afford to go, basically. So they went with one other mate called Ray Chapman, and they went for 3 weeks to Antigua. Now, while they were in Antigua, I was billing old mates, messing around at home and this, that, and the other, going to the pub on my own. And one night, I just went with my mum and dad. We're going to a bingo session at what used to be a theatre in Southport, and it become a gala bingo place, a big bingo place. And so they have a band on and everything. I thought, oh, bingo, I can't stand. Oh, but okay, so it's better than sitting at home doing nothing. So I went to this, and there was a band on, and they were atrocious. Yeah, they were getting paid money and everything, and I thought, what am I sitting on my backside for? So when Roy and then he came back from Antigua, I said, we should get the band back together. And I told him the story about them. We should get the band back together. There's good work. And, we're just wasting. So, yeah, Chris, Roy, fine. We need a bass player, Ray Chapman, who was one of the ones that went to, he turned around and said, well, I'll be a bass player. It wasn't the same this time as Derek. He showed me an album. We found out, we didn't know, Ray was a very, very accomplished jazz musician, piano player, guitar player. He was very, very accomplished and very knowledgeable about music itself, which we weren't really. We played what we heard. He knew about music. So we thought, well, you'll be a bass player. Yeah, I'd love to play bass. Okay. So we started the band. We started putting the band together. Then one night, went to the pub, and Roy said, did you watch, we used to have a programme on the television, seen at 6:30, which is like a magazine programme run by a fellow, Bill Grundy was the presenter. And he put in that they were looking for people to form the new touring cast of Her at the Palace Theatre in Manchester. They were holding auditions this next day. So I said, well, why don't we go? So we can get in that. It'd be a good push for the band as we get it together. So I thought, I'm not really the singer. I'm the guitarist. You're the singer and dancer and all this. Well, yeah, I'll come with you. So we went. We thumbed the hitchhike. A horrible December sleety, rainy day. it's 36 miles to Manchester from Ormskirk. We thumbed it there. We got there about 10 o'clock, and we went to Oxford Street in the centre of Manchester, where the Palace Theatre is. And there was a queue right up the road. Must have been about 500 people in this queue. We were at the back of this, and I thought, oh my God. And it was horrible, rainy, snowy, cold. So there was a pub across the road. So one of us was staying in the queue while the other went for a warmer across the road. We were swapping about. And then we got down the queue, went down, we got down, and then we get to something like 5 o'clock at night. The next thing, we were inside of the stage door, actually inside of the stage door. And this head popped out of the stage door. Sorry, we're finished for today now, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming. If you want to come tomorrow, we'll finish the auditions off at a hall in just off Deansgate, again, the centre of Manchester. Please turn up there for 10 o'clock tomorrow. I thought, well, that's that. You know, sunny at home, thinking day, freezing cold.
Right. You don't do that.
So yeah. We got the train back. We had to get the train to Southport and then a bus back into Ormskirk. The train didn't come to our station in Ormskirk. So we get in the pub, and Roy said, well, we're going back tomorrow, aren't we? I said, no. Not in quite the words like that. No. He said, oh, come on, we've got to go back. We stood all day there. We've just got to go back and give it a go. Okay, so we did the same. And we got there, 10 o'clock, and it was a miserable day again. Not as bad as the day before, but a miserable day. There was only about 30 people turned up.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
And in those 30 people was Richard O'Brien, who wrote the Rocky Horror Show.
Yeah.
So I was called in for my audition first. And the only thing I'd ever sung, I didn't sing in the band at all, was they give me a spot which I sang Just My Blues. So he said, well, tell the piano there's just a piano player, tell him what you want him to play, and he'll play it and sing it, let's hear you. So I said, well, Just My Blues in E, key of E, a shuffly type beat. So I was trying to play it started off, so sang out this Just My Blues. And he said, right, okay, now what we want you to do now is sing Yesterday. It's in the key of F. We need you to sing Yesterday. I don't know the words.
Okay.
Make them up. But as it was, I did know the words. You know, you got these things, you never learn them.
Right.
Along with the record.
Right.
So I maybe I got the odd word wrong. So I sang this yesterday out, and they came up and said, "Oh, right. Piano player's just going to play something on there. Can you just move about and do your own dances?" So this I did. Gyrated around the stage. Right, okay. And he got this book, and he said, right, see this paragraph here? Go and sit at the back of the room there and equate yourself with that paragraph. I don't mean learn it, just equate yourself. I want you to read it to us. We'll go and sit down, do that, we'll get... So I went and sat down, Roy came in. He got halfway through the first song he was doing. I forget what it was now. But halfway through, I can remember I'm looking at this and I look up, and halfway through, they said, right, okay, thank you. That was that. Now, he's the singer in the band. I expected would have been the one that got anywhere. So anyway, next thing is they asked me to go up on stage, read out this paragraph. So it was the paragraph of Woofy about Mick Jagger, and I read it out, and he said, right, okay, name, yeah, address, telephone number, yeah, we don't have a telephone. Oh, we hadn't got a telephone. We're not that well. Right, so we can send it. We'll be in touch. Okay, thanks. Oh, and by the way, can you Americanize your accent a little bit?
Oh, really?
So anyway, we went home, and Roy was asking me, what are they doing? I said, well, I don't know. So I never thought. A couple of weeks went, and I never thought anything about it. In fact, it gone out of my mind, to be quite honest.
Right.
And I was sat at home watching the telly around tea time, and there's a knock on the door, the front door. My dad goes to the front door, and he said, there's a guy here, he's got something for you. Well, I go to the door, and there's a guy in a Crombie jacket, suit, all smart, and there's a big black car out the front with a telegram. So report to the Shaftesbury Theatre, London, 10 o'clock Monday morning.
Oh,
This was a Thursday.
Yeah.
Monday morning next.
Yeah.
All right. So I went back in. I thought, I've got a part in her. Well, then I got the lectures from my dad about the drug ravaged, criminal rage, London, and all this, that, and the other.
Right.
So anyway, we booked the midnight train from Lime Street in Liverpool to go down. So I got that down. It happened to be the mail train with no heating, all the dosses on it. It went all around the country. It was 7:30 before it got to London, which normally nowadays you can be there in 2 hours.
Yeah.
From midnight, it was over 7 hours on this train.
Wow.
So I got off. I bought a map of London from the little shop. There's W.H. Smith's shop there. Bought a map of London, so where I was going, and I asked for that. Well, what on the underground? How would I get down to by the Shaftesbury Theatre? He said that. I did that. Goes down to the Shaftesbury. Turns up at 10 o'clock as requested. Probably looking a bit bedraggled. And I went in, and I'd had my haircut on the. I think it was on that Wednesday before I got the telegram. So my hair was more mod short rather than long.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And they said, "Where's your hair gone?"
They wanted long hair, yeah.
Yeah, where's your hair gone? I said, well, it did grow quickly. Yeah. I said, well, it'll grow quickly. I said, but I did, what do you want? They said, oh, no, you're all right. You're going to be 4 or 5 weeks in rehearsal, and then we'll put you in the London show for a bit, and the tour starts off in March. So yeah, it grew quite well. And I went in, I went onto the stage, and then there was like Paul Nicholas, Richard O'Brien, Tim Curry.
Oh, yeah.
And all these people that were like, whoa, the first day was an exercise in breaking down inhibitions, so you felt comfortable with everybody. And I was then given a list of addresses to find theatre digs, and I looked at one was at Chalk Farm, right by Chalk Farm Station, which is a direct route basically through to Shaftesbury. So I thought, oh, I'll go and have a look at that. So it goes to these digs, and the lady said, yeah, fine. I forget what it was, so much but you have to share. Mostly they're all shares, 2-room shares. Oh, okay. So show me the room. The other person that was in the sharing the room who wasn't there. So I got my map out, had my map of London, looking to see where everything was, trying to work my bearings out. And had the room had 2 beds in, a kind of small wardrobe with these the fit up stuff that you can get in a box and you make up yourself, kind of thing, I don't know if you've ever seen Formica tables and chairs.
Yeah.
They'd have them in all the coffee bars and everything. I had one of those with 2 chairs. So I got one of the chairs and I had the map on the chair, and I was sat on the bed and put my bag beside me. Next thing, this guy comes in, the Scottish accents, thick Scottish accents, and he was effing and blinding, shouting, screaming. I thought, what the heck? I thought, I'm not sharing the room with you. Next thing, I don't know if it was, but he came flying at me and would look like a knife. I picked up the chair, whacked him with it, picked up my bag, left the map, picked up my bag, out the door, straight out the door, and straight back to the theatre, and told them, and they sent the police. I don't know what happened after that, but they then put me in the YMCA, and then I was in London for 6 weeks. On the rehearsals, we put on the London stage, did the West End for a few weeks or so, and then we went out at the end of March. Started at the Palace Theatre in Manchester. I was with it for 18 months.
Yeah, a long time. Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, it was brilliant. Well, I mean, the people I met. I mean, Joan Armatrading, Paul Nicholas. But I don't know if America has Paul Barber, but Paul Barber was in a film called Full Monty, a local British TV stuff, the Brothers McGregor and Only Fools and Horses and stuff. He was from Liverpool. We were flat flirting all the time. And you know, Richard O'Brien, there's all these type of people, Tim Curry, and that were in that show, and it taught me a hell of a lot. And we were doing 3 to 6 weeks seasons, sellouts at every place. Everywhere was a sellout. 3 to 6 weeks on a season. We played all the major cities in the UK, up to Scotland and everything. And while I was doing that, I was Sunday. It was a dark day. There was no show, so I was coming back to Ormskirk on a Sunday and rehearsing with the lads to get the band back together. We were rehearsing basically as a rhythm and blues band. We hadn't got a name sort or anything like that, but Ray was turning out to be an absolute gem. I learned again from the guitar playing and everything, because he knew a lot of how to use jazz chords and stuff. I learned a lot of stuff from him. And after 18 months or so into 71, the tour was coming off the road in Southampton. And the lads were pushing me, well, what are you going to do? Because we're ready to get out on the road. We want to go on the road. They got an agency in Liverpool called Harper Stern Promotions ready to take us on. So we were in Leeds before we went down to Southampton. So I handed me notice and finished in Leeds. I didn't do the last run in Southampton. And the band went out, and the first gig we got was a 3-week tour of Denmark.
In Denmark.
That was Caliban.
Caliban.
Right.
Where did the name come
in the pub, and we said, "Come on, we've got to think of a name. We can't use the Rebels. The Rebels,
right?
That's an old-fashioned. We got to have." And Ray, he was very educated, grammar school lad, very educated. He said, "Well, it's a bit of a rough and ready, but how about Caliban?" And we said, "What the heck's Caliban?" We didn't know any Shakespeare. What's Caliban? He said, "Well, he's an evil, deformed being out of a play called The Tempest." We thought, evil, deformed being, that sounds right. Yeah, okay.
Sounds like you guys.
And that's how that became Caliban. And Caliban went on the road. The first gig was, we did 1 gig in Liverpool at the Knightsbridge Club, and then to Denmark for 3 weeks. And that was the start of Caliban.
Yeah.
A very, very good rock band. Yeah.
Yes. Well, after Caliban broke up, you had a stint with Chicory Tip.
Yeah.
The band that had the hit with "Son of My Father."
Caliban, it was doing it all over the country. Played the last night at the Cavern in the original Cavern in 1973. And London Music Management, who had Phil Collins and things at the time, wanted to sign us up. The thing was recorded. They had the recordings, and lucky enough, they gave us an acetate. And they were going to release the LP of the night. Last night at the Cavern, the bands were Hackensack Strife, War Dog, Harpoon, Bill Slat, and Caliban. Caliban on Supercharged. Caliban were the next to last band to go on. Supercharged were the last bands to ever play on the original Cavern stage. And they were going to sign us up. They sent us the contract. It was 28 pages long. And we went to our local little solicitor in Ormskirk with this contract, which we shouldn't have done, really. We should have either gone to the Musicians Union or just signed the thing. But it went backwards and forwards that many times. They got fed up and said, forget it, basically. So then Chris got ill again. He got fine, and he had to inject himself with stuff, with steroid stuff and that. Which that was another adventure about that as well. But it was fine, and all of a sudden this thing came back. So he had to leave. We got a drummer in, John McCauley, who was excellent, but Chris was a good singer as well as a good drummer. And John was a good drummer, but he wasn't a singer. So we'd lost the voice. And again, it's this camaraderie thing. We were mates. John McCauley came from another band, didn't know us from Adam before he joined us. And he was a good drummer. we got on okay and everything, but that thing, that camaraderie thing that we'd been all over the place doing all these big university gigs. We were supported by the likes of Judas Priest and Equal Billing Time, Maiden, Cockney Rebel. You know, we'd done all these gigs. That camaraderie had just gone.
Yeah.
So we lasted about 6 or 7 months with that. And what was the final straw? I mean, we were going around, we had a roadie, we had a big PA system, and we had all this lighting system and everything, which he worked, but we all pitched in, getting it in, lifting the gear into places and fitting it up. You know, he'd be there 2 o'clock in the afternoon, setting up ready for the night's gig. And we played at a place called Jenks Bar in Blackpool. Now, Jenks Bar was a very big bar at the north end of Blackpool front. And it had upstairs, downstairs. And downstairs was for the general employees and a pop cover band on. And they'd be on for the week and this, that, and the other. They'd have a rock night on a Tuesday night. So we turned up at this, had to take all this gear up, this fire escape and everything. We're on for an hour set. And we're going back to 1975, just beginning of 75. And it was, you know, we were on £100 for the night, which was fairly good money there on a Tuesday night anyway. But we lifted all this, done all this. We went downstairs for a drink because the bar was open all day downstairs. And there was a band on there called Sparkle. I'll never forget any of this. And just had basic gear, just an amplifier each, 2 guitars, guitar, bass, drums, lead singer. Just had 2 guitar amps, 2 PA columns on the side, fit into an ordinary sized transit van. And we had a big fan and everything. And we just got talking to it at the bar. They'd been doing their sound check and everything. And they were on there for the week, 6 nights. And we said, "Oh, do you enjoy doing it?" Yeah, it's great. You know, we're upstairs, we're up. Yeah, we're on Caliban. Oh, yeah. How much you getting for doing this? We just asked them out of interest, how much you get for doing this here the week? Well, they were on £400 for the week. Mm. Everything all set up, just walk in, play. That's it. We thought, well, how living with all this stuff around? We just lost this thing with London, and we were a bit down, you know. So we just thought, no. So we decided that we might downsize everything and turn to being a covers band. And at that, tied up with the offer to join Chicory Tip. So me and Roy actually joined Chicory Tip. And we did that for 11 months with the idea that we had all the original material with Caliban. When we were offered the Chicory Tip thing, we told Pete Hewson, who was the original lead singer, was actually the only ones that were on the actual records. It was mostly session man on all the records, like Clem Catini and that. We were told that you would be the new face of the band. And we were looking to be more rocky. Oh, okay. So that's what we went on with. And we thought, well, we've got all our original stuff. So we booked a appointment with the A&R man at Epic Records, at Columbia Records in Theobald Street in London. And we took the day, me and Roy went down there with all the tapes and stuff, what we had. You know, he said, yeah. He said, you work in Chicory Tip now? Yeah. He said, well, we could call it the new Chicory Tip. We could get Chin and Chapman to look at this material and change it to more poppy, to accept the pop market, to accept it. Well, yeah, we'll go from there. So it goes back to the management of Chicory Tip to tell them all this, all excited and everything. And they said, who told you, give you the right to go and do that? So basically what it was, we were just employed. It was a cash cow and they weren't interested. So we left. That was that.
All right.
And that meant I was out of work. So it's difficult. It was difficult to find a band that was paying decent wages. And I'd just got married for the first time. So it was a matter of, well, form a new band and get a job, a proper job for the time. So I started working for electrical retail firm called Rumbelows, and I became manager there. And I was doing that while I was playing, forming bands, and we got a band basically of from the remnants of Caliban back together, a 5-piece, and we were going around as a cover band doing good work. 10 days runs in the northeast of England, Cumbria, down into Wales, and all around the country, and it was doing okay. It was almost getting to the stage where I was thinking I was doubling up with trying to keep the work thing going as well, that I could go back to full time. Now all of a sudden, that something happened in everybody's feelings, but the band broke up. And the last night we did was at a Hammer Social Club in Rochdale. And we finished that gig. Monday morning, I get a phone call from LE Agency, which we'd worked a lot for. I've got a 10-day run up in the north of England. The band wants it. I said, oh, well, leave it with me. I'll come back. I thought, the band, I'll ring everybody round. See, Roy had already, on the day before, on the Sunday, from packing on the Saturday night, he booked a flight, gone to the south of France. Ray didn't want to know. So there's just the drummer, the bass player, Bill Bond, and myself. So I thought, well, we could do it as a 3-piece if we rehearse tonight, tomorrow, and Wednesday. We start on Thursday. We know the instrumental stuff, it's the vocals. And Bill could sing, he was going to go down me to singer. So I thought, well, I can sing, as I've sung in Her and everything, but I've not been a lead singer in a band, but let's see what I can do. Let's live and learn it. So I took this booking, and the lads agreed to do it, these two, the drummer and the bass player, and we rehearsed solidly for 3 nights, things like Eagle's Lion Eyes, stuff like this. 7 verses of that to learn, and I got it all together, and we went up to Cumberland. We're working to was the first gig we did. We went on, and we did all right. We did fine. Went down okay, and the guy came at the end of the night. He said, "That was okay, lads." He said, "But I'm only paying. We're on £100 a night. I'm only paying you £75." Oh, why is that? Well, there's only 3 of you. I booked a 5-piece band. Oh, right. Okay. We get to the next gig, and before we even got the gear through the day, I'm only paying you 75 quid. So we rang the agency. He said, well, you told us, you didn't tell me you come down to a 3-piece. I said, well, this is something that happened over the weekend. And so it was all accepted, and we went okay. So that was the start of the 3 pieces then. And shortly after, a few changes of personnel, I thought, well, I can't work in. We were working under the name of Caliban still.
Yeah.
I can't carry on working under that. It's not Caliban. It's not what it was. And that's how Shooter started.
That's how Shooter started. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Who was in the original unit of Shooter?
The original unit of Shooter was a bass player called Bill Good and a drummer called Steve Scatz. Steve Scatz goes down as a soul singer going around. He's got a big circuit called Steve Charles. Bill Good unfortunately passed away earlier this year. But Bill stayed with us for 3 years. Steve Scatz was with us for about 9 months, and then he joined a soul band. He said his heart and soul was into soul music, totally into soul music. We were playing across the board, just playing across the board covers then. He went off and joined them. We got another drummer in Brian G, and he lasted for a while. Then we got another drummer, Kenny Lloyd. And then in the end of 62, I don't know what it was, but we did a New Year's Eve gig at a big kind of pub cabaret thing in Liverpool. And at the end of the night, the other two just said, "Oh, we don't want to do it anymore." We finished. So I joined a band called Topaz then, and they were a kind of classic rock cover band. I was with them for a year, and then that spins up in a similar type of way. in the same night on the New Year's Eve at the end of '63. And I heard Bill Good was not doing anything, so I rang him up. And we started going out firstly as just me and him on bass, doing what we used to do before. And then we got a drummer in, John Kerwin. And that was the real start of Shooter That, because that then went on up to '88. And we started covering 60s. We were going back to our roots. We started covering 60s and rock and roll numbers because we noticed that the audiences were being our peer group coming back out again. Kids had grown up and coming out. They're starting to do bits of 60s festivals. So we thought, well, go back to where we started. And we started covering all the early 60s stuff and the rock and roll things. And that went on to '88. Then Bill got an offer to go with it. There was a singer called Lee Curtis, who back in the day, Lee Curtis and the All Stars were the band that Pete Best joined when he left the Beatles, when he got sacked from the Beatles. He joined Lee Curtis and his All Stars. And they were quite big in Germany. Lee always was. I've known Lee ever since then. But Bill joined him and went on. That was for a tour of Germany. So we got another bass player in. And there was a chop and changing of things. I was still working at the electrical shop. And then I got an offer of redundancy offer. I've been there 9 years or so. And they gave me a really good redundancy offer. I was just coming on to 40 in age. And it wasn't one I had to take. It was just an offer. We're thinking of moving younger kids into the management things, and would you want to take it? So I took it, and I set the band up full time. Now, the two lads that were with me at the time, they didn't want to take the chance on full time, so I advertised for new people, and I ended up with a young 18-year-old bass player who was superb. And his dad used to be in another big Liverpool band, the P Beatles, King Size Taylor and the Dominoes. His dad was
right.
And he was really good, harmonist, great bass playing, and a drummer that had been some of the good Liverpool bands of the '70s, Rocking Horse and Jimmy O'Brien, and that was the first real proper good Shooter professional lineup, and that was a cracking lineup. Then we got into 91, end of 91, and John Franklin, Steve's dad, decided he was going back on the road, so he pinched his dirty son off me. So I had to find a bass player, and we found this lad eventually, Phil Maudsley. It was okay, pretty good. He ended up with us for 9 years, and but Jimmy O'Brien left over some sort of issue with his son. He didn't want to travel, so we got a drummer in, Richie Talent, who'd been with the Foremost. He was also in secondary schools, mates of mine, which I knew from school. Richie Talent. That's what always used to be the joke. How do you call it? Oh, the drummer about have a name like Talent, you know. But there you go. But he was with us. That stayed together for 4 years, and I started putting together the Legend of the '60s show that we did.
Yeah.
And Richie had a girlfriend who'd been a choreographer for the Butlins group, and we thought, oh well, you know, we'll use Jackie. That was her name, Jackie. And she didn't turn out to be what she made herself out to be. And Richie and the band fell out because he wanted to stay there, but she was just not good. She's not good enough. And he eventually left. We got this show on the road. We did that show as well as the band doing its ordinary gigs, and that did all the major theatres and lots of corporate work around the country. And that lineup, Jimmy O'Brien came back. And that lineup lasted 6 years then, into the 2000 and odd. Then we went through some changes again with Stuart Lynch and Bob Dickinson, drums. And it carried on. It ended up with Bob Dickinson and Stuart Lynch as the final lineup.
Okay. Well, you guys released some recorded material too, as well.
Yeah, we did. The first thing we did an LP with Billy Kinsley from the Mersey Beats, bass player from the Mersey Beats. He had Amadeus Studios in Liverpool, and he produced the first one, which was basically what we sold on our gigs. It wasn't nationally released. We sold on our gigs, but we sold a hell of a lot of them. That was a 20 number CD of covers of the 60s with a couple of originals on. And then when I got my studio, and I moved my studio in 2004, 2002, before I had cancer, 2002. Everything came in house then. Everything came in house, and we released a few things. But the band, they're all basically local vendors who sold them, or on the gigs as part of the merchandise for the band, you know. And I had a lot of people in the studio. Some good people come in. I did the Drifters. We had about the Drifters for a year. The lineup as it was then, and a couple of American guys. There was William Hicks, who's from Atlanta, Georgia. He lives in Blackpool now. Great soul singer. He came in the studio. I did a few things, but the band was basically used for my in-house stuff. I put a band together, joined back up with Ricky again in 2009 as the Reformed Top Spots. He reformed the Top Spots just to do in Liverpool. There was when John Banks from the Mersey Beats died, they had a reunion at a big local club, the Montrose in Liverpool. And they decided to start this thing, a reunion of all the old Merseybeat musicians and everything. They called it Merseycats. And they were running this Merseycats, and it was run every Thursday. And the proceeds from it went to local children's charities, and Alder Hay Hospital is just Children's Hospital in Liverpool. We used to go to that, and Rick said, well, just to play there, play those gigs, not play gigs, just to play there. Do you want to, I know you're going out with Shooter on the road and everything, but it just, when you get your Thursdays off, we can play there and that. So we did that, and I played with them for quite some time. Then those type of things just die away eventually. I formed another band because Shooter was basically a product. We set a set of numbers. We didn't even rehearse. We just sort of set of numbers. We went out with, and that was that. And I felt it was getting a bit stale, so I formed another band. Again with Steve Franklin, who was the 18-year-old lad who's now, in his 30s, and he was still on. He was free, like running around doing nothing. So got him and a keyboards player and a drummer, and the keyboards player, an amazing musician. Called Beats Working, and we did some of that, and we got a little CD out with that as well. And I'm still doing Shooter, but it was the kind of worked as whatever's first in the diary, that's it. But yeah, so that was that. And both those bands went to 2021. Just basically, COVID finished that.
Yeah, that finished that. We'll talk about JKH Music Productions.
Yeah,
how that started, and then some of the bands under.
JKH Music Productions was originally Lots Productions, Legend of the 60s.
Okay.
Which was started in 1995 when we started putting the. If you look on our website, you'll see the Legend of the 60s show. That was a full show, 12-piece show going out, giving a chronological run from rock around the clock days, rock and roll years, into the Merseybeat years, right through, right up to the hippie and Woodstock and everything, all that stuff years. And it was a chronological show. And it did very, very well. Did 2 summer seasons at the Southport Floral Hall, which was a gig that all the big bands played back in the day. We did 2 full summer seasons there. And then we went out on a national theatre tour with it. It was all self-funded. And we started. We got things like the Open Golf Championship when they have it here, the varying venues. We do the reception on the opening night with a theme from the show, and that ran for 10 years. But people coming and going and everything, very hard to keep together. and without some substantial funding, you couldn't take it up a level. I never got that to that stage with it, really.
Yeah,
so,
that's interesting.
So that was Lots Productions. Yeah, sorry that. But when the initial team that put that together broke away, it was left with me, and I decided to, as I was opening my studio at the same time, I call it JKH Productions. So we take over doing putting on shows, and I'd have the studio. The whole thing would be run under JKH Music Productions. So that's how that started, really.
Oh, okay. Well, I know JKH Band and the Rebels. Who are in the Acousticats?
Acousticats are the three front people out of JKH Band. Sue Raymond. Now Sue comes from a musical family. Her son, Mike Smith, but she was married previously. Mike Smith. He plays sax for Elkie Brooks and also tours with Echo and the Bunnymen.
Yeah.
Dean Phil Frost, the bass player, is an old mate from going back. He was in a band in the Merseybeat days called the Aztecs. And he joined up with us he was a rhythm guitarist, really. He'd never played bass. I wanted people locally that were friends that I knew that we'd get along with and everything. We get on great. We have our little times, the spats here and there, but we get on great. And that's those three, Sue, Phil, and myself, at Acousticats. And we go out doing basically what we do with the JKH Band, but acoustically.
Acoustic.
For nursing homes and things like that. Just restaurants. We do Ling On King's, a local Chinese restaurant. She has us in there. We all go in there quite often. We do all the Christmas stuff there, and it's just a lighter version. And then you've got the JKH Band, which Dean comes in on that. That makes up the JKH Band. Yeah.
Well, again, it's great that many of the shows raise money for cancer research.
Oh yeah, we list thousands and thousands. We do about 6 shows a year. Yeah. We do one big one, which is generally a theatre show. The last 2 years we've done it in a big market, the Southport Flower Show, which is a big national flower show. And we get one of the marquees on the Saturday night, and the whole thing's set out. And that's been our big one for the last 2 years. But before that, we used the Atkinson Theatre, Southport, or wherever we could get. And then we do smaller ones around the clubs. We make a good few bob for cancer research. Yeah,
that's a great cause. Yeah. It really is. Really a lot of. I know watching the baseball here, they have that stand up to cancer, things like that. During some.
I've appeared on that on the television. Yeah. I was on the first one.
Yeah.
We're part of a garage band. And that was shown as the garage band. It was only a short 30-second clip.
Yeah.
About the awareness of cancer and everything. Right. But I've been on a few things on that. And recently I've opened a big cancer superstore here and things. So Stand Up to Cancer. We used to do under that banner, right? Very first, the Stand Up to Cancer thing. It was under that banner, which is, although it's still Cancer Research UK, it's a separate entity within that to bring out the awareness to stand up, get yourself seen to and everything, So, yeah.
I was going to ask you if you had anything else to add. We're kind of coming to a close here, so you can. Did you?
No, that's it. That's where we're at. We've got a big gig on. We're representing Sefton Council, which is our local. The northern end of Merseyside is Sefton, and it covers Crosby, Formby, Southport, all this area, and we're representing them on Friday on the Atkinson Theatre here, which is a part of a 3 coastal area program that our national lottery and government have put out, where about the music of these 3 coastal areas: Grimsby, Dover, and Sefton. And we're representing Sefton on that with the Royal Liverpool Philharmonic Orchestra, ourselves, solo singer Maddie, I don't know second name, and a short play about, I don't know if you've heard about the Iron Men of Crosby. On our Crosby Beach here, one of our national artists made iron casts of himself, life size, and there's 100 of them built into the sand on the beach on the entrance as you come into the River Mersey. And it's a play about them. So open this thing up. That's what we're doing on Friday.
Okay. So all right. Well, Keith, it's a good time. Let you go, and you have a good rest of the weekend. I appreciate it, sharing and all the stories and your time. And I'll get you a copy of this in about a week or so once I edit a little bit and post it and see what kind of reactions we get.
Okay, lovely. Yeah.
All right. Well, all the best to you, Keith. All right.
And all the best to you, Greg. Thank you for thinking of me. Anyway, thank you.
Oh yes, you're very welcome. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Bye for now. All right.
Bye.